So Beth, what's the latest on the Chrysler Maserati Sport Coupe?
John, you remember last summer that Chrysler finally made public their plans to build a sports car with the Italian car maker, the Maserati.
Yes, I do, but they didn't say when they were going to do it.
Well, you can stop wondering, because now we know the rest of the story. Starting with what it looks like, sort of a hybrid that's tough to classify. It's not exactly exotic, like Maseratis and Ferraris, and it's not exactly conservative, like the Mercedes-Benz SLs. It's also not going to be cheap, carrying a $25,000 to $30,000 price tag. It's maybe a little too rich for your average Chrysler buyer. The Chrysler Maserati is really a Chrysler. At least it looks more like a Chrysler than a Maserati. But it's a Chrysler built by Maserati, right alongside the bi-turbo. Codenamed the Q Coupe during development and called the Sport Coupe until Chrysler can think up a better name, the car is based on a Chrysler front-drive platform. The body was done by Maserati, and the interior and suspension were jointly designed by both partners. Even with K-car parts, the Sport Coupe will be up to date, with anti-skid brakes and a 170 horsepower intercooled version of the Chrysler 2.2-liter turbo. It's supposed to be a no-option car, but Chrysler will offer a hotter version with a 200 horsepower 16-valve 2.2 and a German-made Getrag 5-speed transaxle. On the inside, the look is mostly Maserati. The leather upholstery seems like it is straight out of a bi-turbo, and the dash gets real wood and a wood-rimmed steering wheel. With a 93-inch wheelbase, the car was designed as a two-seater only. Behind the seats, there's a storage compartment and folding soft top. There's a removable hardtop, too, complete with 56 T-bird portholes that don't quite match the car's looks. This whole Chrysler Maserati project is actually an offshoot of Lee Iacocca's Ford days. Maserati is now headed by Alessandro Di Tommaso, the same man who brought the Pantera to Ford back in the late 60s when Iacocca was working for Ford. But it looks like the Iacocca-Di Tommaso relationship will last longer than Ford's. Chrysler and Maserati are planning to build 4,000 to 6,000 of the cars per year in Italy. And Chrysler has hinted that there may be another Chrysler Maserati in the works, a four-door designed mostly by Maserati. So if you were hoping for a Chrysler Maserati with more Maserati and less Chrysler, you may be getting one of them, too.
But Beth, when can we finally expect to see the Q Coupe on sale?
Shortly after the beginning of 1987, John. Now that's just in time for it to go bumper to bumper with one of its main competitors, the Cadillac Alante, which should be coming out about the same time.
Indeed, and the Alante is going to be made mostly in Italy, too.
That's right.
Okay, thanks, Beth. Now, that Chrysler Maserati Sport Coupe we just saw was still a prototype. Prototypes are cars that are pretty close to production, but not quite there yet. Changes can still be made before production. Prototypes are also built by hand, which makes them more than just a little expensive. In the case of the Chrysler Maserati, both companies are building their own prototypes. But to stir up interest in the car, Chrysler wanted prototypes faster than they could build them themselves. So they hired some outside craftsmen. Not in Detroit or in Europe either. The craftsmen that got the nod are doing their thing down in Southern California. Metal Crafters is their name, and they're one of a number of companies that build prototypes for car makers. But as their name implies, they do it with a twist. Their work here is mostly in metal. Other shops usually build in easier-to-shape fiberglass. But Chrysler wanted fully functional Q Coupe prototypes, cars that actually ran, not just full-size photographic models. Led by patriarch John Gafoglio and accompanied by a lot of his family, Metal Crafters built 4 Q Coupes for Chrysler in just 15 months. This job began with a good set of blueprints, but Metal Crafters often has only artist renderings and general dimensions to go on. Still, transforming lines on paper or rough-scale models to a finished car is time-consuming and delicate work. Gafoglio and his team worked nearly round the clock to meet Chrysler's deadline. Each piece of the Q Coupe was carefully formed and finished, right down to the individual slats in the grille. This kind of work leaves no room for mistakes. Even the tiniest error in a component will render it expensive junk. Metal Crafters has no computers or robots, but they do have precise vision, experienced hands, and expert judgment. They come from building race car and custom truck bodies in the family's native Argentina. As it happens, the owner of Italy's Maserati, Alessandro Di Tommaso, who will build the production Q coupes, also comes from South America's second largest country. As you might expect, security around Metal Crafters is tight. When they're working on a project, only people who need to know are allowed past the gate. Inside their kind of small shop, a few specialized machines are used to give parts their basic shapes. Parts such as wheel well extensions or top moldings are crimped to a rough arch, and then they're checked against a template before final handworking and fitting to the prototype. Some sections, such as the hood, are made from more than one piece of metal, then carefully welded with a continuous seam. The hood slope comes from this rolling press. It looks easy, but a slip in rhythm means they might have to start all over. Many smaller sections, especially those with unusual curves, are made solely by painstaking pounding over and over. As the car takes shape, final body work is done on a surface plate. The surface plate is like a giant set of rulers. They use it to make sure the dimensions of the whole prototype conform to design specifications. Now, Metal Crafters was responsible for the entire car, including the top mechanism, the interior, and the paint. That's a first for the firm. The result speaks for itself. Valued at $500,000 each, the Chrysler Maseratis built by Metal Crafters are works of art. They won't be used to make any moldings for the production car, but they have already prompted more than a few changes in the Q Coupe's final design. Changes that could not have been made until all of the parts were brought together to make a whole car. Over the years, the Goffoglios have built a number of prototypes, from the first Chrysler convertible to this customized Rampage. Looking at them all, you can tell that Metal Crafters puts more than a little love in their handiwork, as their personal affection for the automobile continues to grow.